Indiana Jones, It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. The Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we vanquish the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm the Grail Admiral, Pete Mummert.
I'm Gerald Christopher St. Bartholomew the Apostle. Going straight to the top this time.
Wow.
The original. Yeah, that's old school. That's
Yeah.
way old school Saint if you're the one of the original apostles. It's like a red room brick schoolhouse old school. Patron saint of Florentine cheese and salt merchants, and also provides protection against twitching.
Wait, he was an
Against
original
twitching?
apostle, and that's what he's the patron saint of?
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird?
That's really weird.
Yeah, it's really
You
weird.
think
I mean,
he'd get
he's
like
got
cancer or like,
something big.
yeah.
Well, he has a couple. It's Armenia because I believe Armenia was the first Christian state or,
Yeah, I
or
think you might be
country.
right. Yeah, you might be
that
right
like
about
the
that,
like
yeah.
it was officially Christian.
The
So
patron
Armenia,
saints, they start to sound like the little people in Time Bandits. Like, oh yeah, I'm in charge of like shrubberies. And, this guy's in charge of, twitches and whatever.
He's also couriers, and I don't understand this one. Along with the list is whiteners. I have no idea. Like if you want to bleach your underwear,
Yeah.
you pray to him.
Well, you said
do.
couriers. Is there a patron saint of curries?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Oh, that'd be good.
yeah. I
Delicious.
guarantee
Like,
there
are
is
there
one,
delicious
yeah.
patron saint?
I
See, I
feel like
can't.
saying-
I say patron now too. Damn it, Jerry.
You know what? I feel like saying, let's be clear. Curry is so good, they don't need a saint to intercede. Porter.
Hi, I'm Neil St. Barbara, patron saint of miners, artillerymen, military engineers and firefighters, Italian Marines, architects, builders, foundry workers, fireworks makers, servicemen of the Russian Strategic Rocket Forces, not making it up, mathematicians, geoscientists, and stonemasons. Brown.
Whoa.
That's greedy.
I like that she both destroys it and builds it back up. Like that's kind of nice.
She's got a lot on her
Work at
plate.
both ends. Now, wait a minute.
I'm
As
confused,
shocking as that name is, though,
Yeah.
it's shocking that you're here. What are you doing here? It's Monday. It's a new week. You were here on Friday.
You guys told me to bring my sleeping bag, so
Well, yeah, but I mean, I got to go to school. I mean, this is
This is
a Monday.
unprecedented. This is this
crossing
ever
the
happened in
stream.
history of yeah.
well,
You know
told
what
me
we did? We took a leap of faith across the weekend bridge.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah.
and now we're throwing sand across it.
Yeah.
Well, you told me to bring my sleeping bag, but why did you tell me to bring all this chainmail as well?
No
What are you
reason.
guys into? This is very heavy to bring this from all the way from
Just
Hong
into
Kong.
discussing Last Crusade 1 minute at a time.
God, that's the most disgusting thing you could have said, dude. Tom.
It dissects the movie 1 minute at a time. Well, of course, we're glad you're here. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. We're always glad to see you.
My pleasure.
And we're glad that you're here to talk about minute 111, which begins with the Grail Knight continuing to tell Indy his whole life story, and it ends with Donovan and Elsa arriving in the cave.
Well, first of all, he doesn't tell him his whole life story, or Jerry would be ecstatic about this scene. But it's interesting because he says he's the last of three brothers who swore an oath to find the Grail and to guard it. And Indy says that was 700 years ago. And I think this date is fascinating because 700 years ago is 1638 from when the movie is set. And the Holy Land didn't fall until, it would have been 1238, not 1638.
Yeah.
And the Holy Land didn't fall until 1291. So even though the Crusaders had lost Jerusalem, before 1238, they were still fighting in the Holy Land. So I think it's interesting that the knights left before the Crusades were over.
You're placing a lot of faith in Indy's accuracy here, Pete.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I don't know why the knight doesn't say, yeah, why didn't he say, no, that's not true. It's 900 years.
What kind of knight are you?
Yeah, 850 years, whatever.
See, I always say, if you're going to be a knight, I don't care. You can be a good counter or be a bad counter, but take it seriously.
Well, speaking of taking it seriously, why is the knight blue?
I like, it's like he's in a different movie.
He doesn't get a
like
lot of
he's-
sun.
Yeah.
I wondered,
Yeah.
is that just, he's completely depleted of vitamin D?
Yeah.
See, I don't think he
doesn't
does
need it.
go out. No.
And he's
no.
not only blue, he glows.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like someone's projecting a film. He's like Princess Leia hologram almost.
Yeah. Maybe he is a hologram.
Maybe this is what happens after 700 years. The
Yeah.
human condition, starts to become bioluminescent.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, what's weird is he agrees. He's like, yeah, 700 years is a really long time.
Yeah.
So, like, I think one of us asked a while ago, like, does he know how long he's been in there, like, waiting for somebody? And it sounds like he does. But then also, how would he know how long it? He may have known
Yeah.
it's been a really long time, but like, where's his notches on the wall and stuff like
right,
that?
or if
Yeah.
you can't see the sun in this cave, apparently he can see the sun somewhere. Like maybe he's got this is just the sort of the foyer, but maybe if you go inside, it's really nice.
Maybe he just thinks he's been there for like a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was this just some silly joke about being blue-blooded? Like some
Yes.
royalty thing?
Yes.
It just says super recessive genes.
It is kind of a nice effect. It's like
Yeah.
it's not makeup. It's not like an actual effect. It's just like lighting on it. They just lit him in
Yeah.
a way that he looks kind of different from everything else in the room.
And he's kind of washed
Yeah.
out. It's almost like he's in a black and white film or something.
Yeah.
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 It's like
There's
Zilli.
a great Billy Connolly bit about him being blue. He's talking about people getting sunburned, and because he's from Glasgow, and he says, when people get sunburned, they start from like white as the base. He goes, well, I'm from Glasgow. We start from like a pale blue. Takes me weeks to turn white. Maybe he's from Glasgow.
Maybe.
Good night.
He's certainly not from France.
If he knows that he's been in there for 700 years, like, why does he expect his successor to be dressed in chainmail and the whole medieval garb?
That is a little weird. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
see, I initially thought that. Like he says, you're dressed strangely, but then he says you're dressed strangely for a night, and it almost the way he adds the for a night at the end makes it sound like he's been on the outside and he knows how people dress today. But it's almost like he's looking at him because he looks at his whip. It's almost like he's saying, "Why are you dressed as a lion tamer?"
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not believing that this knight walks around outside.
Yeah, actually,
I don't want
think
to
he does
either.
No, I'm barely accepting the fact that he moves.
Yeah.
Like I like when we first are introduced to him and he's just standing there still and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And, the spell has not yet been broken, which is cool
Right.
with me.
Well,
Right.
what do you think? What do you think it'd be like to be on your own for 700 years?
Well, Pete would love it.
Yeah.
I don't know why he
No,
keeps
but
saying
I
that.
mean, you must have learned to meditate or something, or just kind
Yeah.
of like go into maybe he trained himself to go into like a hibernation. Do you think he like sleeps for 3 months at a time or something, or what kind of cycle do you get in if you've had no external input?
But see, I'll tell you the worst thing about it is it's like going to the doctor's office and there's a long wait and you're just sitting there and you're so bored, but at the same time you can't really relax because at any second the nurse is going to walk in and say, and so it's just like he can never relax because he's always waiting for the next knight to come in and fight him. But at the same time, he's just been bored out of his skull for 700 years.
Yeah.
This is absolute hell on earth. Like this guy has a horrible, horrible life.
He might be completely insane.
That's the
Yeah.
reward.
And we don't
Yeah.
hang around with him long enough to realize it.
See, I like how we're introduced to him, which is you kind of enter this room and it's very quiet. There's just some torches lit. You don't know how long they've been there lit. It's interesting. There's no smoke no smoke on the walls or the ceiling. Obviously, the guy probably would have died of smoke, inhalation at this point. Like he would have asphyxiated.
Yeah.
But I like that he's just there, very solemn. And I don't know, maybe he eats those like little albino cave fish. I don't know, whatever. But
Salamanders.
yeah, those
on the bridge.
But I like that he's just sort of in a state of contemplation. Very medieval, very Catholic, very monastic. Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I dig it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope he's got his own moonshine on the go, though. At least
Something, yeah.
brew his own beer or something.
Yeah.
Well,
That would be monastic as well, Jerry, brewing his own beer.
No, you're right. You're right. It's fair to say. I mean, because he's there. I mean, we know he's drunk from the Grail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Can you drink
Right,
vodka
okay.
from the Grail, though? Does it work as well, or does it have to be
Yeah.
the water?
Mountain Dew.
I assume that if it's the Grail, it is like kind of the original transubstantiation blood of Christ, and it turns into that. Yeah. I know, I'm taking this a little too seriously, aren't I?
Is it holy water that you have to drink then? I mean, it's skipping ahead a few minutes, but there's some water in there.
And if it's
yeah.
holy water, does that mean the Grail Knight is also a priest?
Is he
'Cause wouldn't
ordained
have be?
to?
Right.
Yeah.
To make it holy water.
He's
Yeah.
self-ordained. He's taking this all upon himself. Yeah.
I think he did. Like I think he's almost like a cult leader, but he's got a cult of himself.
Yeah, I'm a priest of the Church of Me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the lunch boy drops his lunch off every.
Yeah.
Hey, come on, let me talk to you.
I've got something. We've been at loggerheads a little bit, Jared, but I've got something for you. Maybe we can try to build an invisible bridge between us. All these, because he's got these fires everywhere,
Yeah.
and trees don't tend to grow in caves. So are these supernatural Yahweh fires?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah.
See, I
Even I
keep
accept
leaning
that.
on the side of Yahweh's here. I mean, there's tons of Yahweh wind all throughout the Grail Temple / cave. It's everywhere. Ever since they first get into the canyon, Yahweh makes his presence known. I figured the breath of God was actually just God breathing. Like I didn't have a problem. I was like, oh yeah, it's I'm way in on the supernatural stuff here.
Right.
That's why, not to tear down our bridge of Jenga here, Pete, but that's why I'm a little bit more on the side of I don't think this guy is just acting by himself, a self anointed priest who's here. I kind of was under the umbrella of somehow Yahweh picked him, he's chosen, or he's anointed or something.
And then told him that someone's coming. Which
Yeah.
is why he put the chainmail on.
Yes.
Get out of his pajamas,
That's right.
See, I still think he has a room, like a bank of monitors in the next room.
Yeah.
He sees, like, he watches Indy going through the first 2 challenges, and he's like, all right, got to put on the costume.
The eyes of God.
He kind of activates. Yeah. He kind of activates when Indy enters the room.
Yeah, what is he doing in that? Is he praying, or is he reading, or is, like you say, is he just kind of
He's in stasis.
in a yes?
Yeah, torpor.
Yeah.
He's just in a contemplative prayer, which is pretty much what all those monks did. So they say. You read, they lived a life of contemplative prayer. Somebody had to make the beer.
If this movie were really cool, he'd be an android. And he's just in like low power mode for 700 years.
What if he had the robot arm? What if he had the robot arm?
Oh. What if he had a human arm, but he's a robot with a human arm? I'm not going to let go of the robot.
my God.
I want to be a robot.
Well, question for you, Pete. I think you're right. I think this is a miserable existence for the knight, and he's had it. He's done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know how he, quote, dies. I mean, maybe it's one of those ascension things like, Mary, where he just is going to ascend up to heaven because he can't die, obviously. But he does, capitulate quite quickly here. He's like, "Oh, you got me vanquished," and he hands over the sword.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to use a little Pete Mummert, conspiracy theory. I think he's not really trying.
See, that would be more fun. If you saw him for a second, even before Indy showed up, and you kind of get the sense that he's just done with this. He's just kind of like this crafty dude. He's like, all right, oh, but you beat me. Ow, oh, my arm. No, you hit me so hard.
See, that sounds even more Monty Python than what happens. God, I don't understand. I don't understand you sometimes.
Yeah, but okay, I'd rather have him be fully Monty Python than to be a serious dude and then have him fall down and go boop-a-da-boop.
That makes no sense. I want it to be more of a gag than the gag I hate because it's a gag.
I would honestly rather have him be a 100% gag than 90% awesome and serious, and then he falls down because he's an old man. Honestly, I swear to God, it would be kind of neat if I'm not saying it would be neat if he was Monty Python, but if he was, that would make more sense to me. I wouldn't be jarred halfway through,
Well, he
jarred.
Oh my God, that's not funny.
He does give him the sword. I don't understand the vanquished part.
Well, I think
yeah.
I think he's like, oh, it's all yours, buddy.
Yeah, my team didn't show up.
He is, which makes me question what happened yesterday or last Friday. So he takes one swing. I guess it's a perfunctory swing.
That's a pretty good swing, though. That first one's actually a pretty good swing he takes.
So
no, I agree. Especially if he's, his L4 and L5 are slipped, and he his back. Oh, me aching. No, and then Indy is unarmed.
Mm-hmm.
And so he takes one swing, and then he's like, "I've been vanquished."
Yeah.
And he hands him the sword.
Well, he knows he can't fight him.
Really...
For whatever reason, he's old and he can't fight him, and he knows that. And he's like, "All right, you win."
And he's just like, "I'm so ready to give up. I just
you do get that sense, yeah.
But he's given himself this job. And it's like he's so stubborn he can't give up until. But as soon as the second he has a chance, he's like, "Hey, it's all yours."
Yeah,
you got me.
Yeah. Hey, Jer, did you hear that?
Oh yeah, it reminds me of my own fencing days back in college. But say, well, how's it going? Is that Toby?
Hi guys, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, this looks like Toby Capwell, curator of arms and armour at the Wallace Collection in London. Hey.
Well, fancy meeting you here at an Indiana Jones minute.
You turn up in the weirdest places sometimes. So I heard that you've got some arms and armour coming up in this film you've been talking about for a while, and I thought I'd better weigh in on it. Awesome. I noticed a couple of things which might be useful to know about, maybe.
Absolutely.
I should explain that I saw this film opening night in May of 1989, was it? I was 16 at the Seattle Cinerama, and I already knew something about arms and armor by then because I'd been interested in this stuff since I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And a couple of things jumped off the screen at me when we got to the whole Grail Knight sequence, and I've been waiting like 30 years to get it off my chest.
Who joined the club?
So we had there's a couple of things to say about the Grail Knight, and specifically the armor and equipment that he's shown wearing. I got one sort of general thing to say, and then one more specific point. But first of all, the main thing to say is that the armor that he's wearing is, by cinematic standards, by Hollywood standards, it's really good. I mean, he looks pretty darn close to what a medieval knight of the crusading era is supposed to look like, and even beyond the most obvious points, they nailed a couple of details which give him the ring of truth, the kind of verisimilitude that normally Hollywood armor just doesn't have. I mean, he really jumps out. And the first thing is that this is the great age of mail armor that's made out of lots of interlinking steel or iron rings, and that's pretty well known. But the thing about it is, in our knight here is wearing real mail. It's actually made out of thousands of little interlinking steel or iron links, and
Wow.
this is really unusual. I mean, sometimes you get mail appearing in like silent films, and occasionally in 1940s, 50s Robert Taylor sort of era films. But in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they invariably fake it. And faking it was the standard practice, in the 1980s, where basically they just take yarn and they'd knit it with big knitting needles, and then they'd say, "Oh yeah, that looks sort of like mail," and then they'd spray it silver, and just spray paint it silver or gold or whatever you want. And this is absolutely typical. So if you take, for example, a famous one of the better medieval well, it's a TV movie from this period, mid-1980s, the Ivanhoe, starring Anthony Andrews.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually got loads of Indiana Jones links, because John Rhys Davies is in it. He plays Reginald Front de Boeuf, one of the Norman knights, and Sam Neill is in it. That's a Jurassic Park link, but I'll go with it. And who else? Oh, yeah, and Julian Glover is in it. He plays King Richard the Lionheart. Right?
Wow.
So when he turns up in this scene, you sort of wonder whether the Grail Knight's going to recognize him or something. But but anyway, that's one of the better proper medieval epics of the 1980s, and they're all wearing what's called string mail. It's just knitted yarn sprayed silver.
Well, so where would you come across something like that today? Like, would you have to go to the medieval fair down at the local park that shows up once a year or whatever? Get a little bit of mead, and there's like one guy who makes chainmail.
The thing is, from real mail or stuff that's actually made out of links, they might be plastic, but they're actual, it's a weave of links. That came into standard practice in Hollywood again after the Lord of the Rings. So you look at Lord of the Rings brings real mail back into film, and then you start seeing it again in Kingdom of Heaven and later Robin Hoods, and just about any modern film. String mail doesn't fly anymore because we know the difference. These things only work if you have if you don't have a basis for comparison, and audiences are a little more knowledgeable now, but. I'm just really struck by the fact that they didn't go with string mail in the Last Crusade. It's like they understood that the conceit is that this is a real study in realism, and the magical supernatural parts only work if the realism is quite tangible. That's why the first one works anyway. I mean, it kind of goes off the rails a bit later, and to what extent the other ones are real, I don't know. But this scene wouldn't work if he was wearing string mail, because it would just look fake. And somebody was working on this, went to the trouble to get something better, and I just want to congratulate them, because for someone who knows this stuff and cringes at just about every film I see, it's refreshing, and it doesn't stop there, mind you. Beyond the mail's really good, and the way the mail hood or coif is put together is more like a medieval one in some respects than you could ever expect, really. But then he's also wearing this coat over his mail armor. He's got like this padded coat with these kind of elbow-length sleeves, and that is they've really nailed it there. That's a medieval garment usually called in this period an accaton. And it's a form of padded textile armor, basically. That, the mail, different forms of armor only work if you have different protective materials with different properties working together. You can't just depend on one thing. So the mail by itself doesn't do you any good. And the fact that they've...
Really?
Yeah. And normally you would wear a padded garment under your mail. But what almost nobody in Hollywood will have known is that real medieval knights often also wore padded textile armor over their mail. And that's exactly what you've got going on here.
Wow.
Well, maybe they just got an actual guy from the Crusade. Maybe all this stuff is real. They found this guy is 1,000 years old, and they said, you know what, let's bring him back at the end of the movie. Let's put this guy. We'll write a whole movie around it.
Well, how uncomfortable would that be to be sitting around wearing padded mail and chainmail? Would it be hot and sweaty, or would you have restrict your movement a lot, or would you be okay?
Well, I think they've done their elderly Shakespearean actor a bit of a favor here, because they've introduced the padded garment over the top so that they don't have to put him in a full coat of mail. I don't think he's got one under there, even though it's made to look like it. When he waves goodbye to Indy at the end of it and he raises his arm, you get the sense that the mail sleeve stops where the textile starts. So I think they've gone with a bit of a fiddle, just so their old actor doesn't have to be wearing 50 pounds of armor all day on set. So I think he's only wearing the sort of long mail gloves and then the mail hood, but it looks the absolute business. And his sword belt's good. He's got a proper double knotted sword belt. And even little details like the heavy cloak that he's wearing. One thing about armor is that it's not good in extremes of temperature. It's obviously really uncomfortable when it's hot.
Yeah.
Imagine it's like, I'm all donned up to battle today, but it's just too hot.
Right. Well, this is the Crusades. That's a serious problem. And
that's a great point. Yeah.
But it's also not good when it's cold. And, this guy's been in this cave for like 800 years, right? And I bet it's cold in there.
Yeah. It is a desert.
Right. And when mail armor gets
cold,
when any metal armor gets cold, it starts to suck your body heat out. And you get really, really tense, and you start getting all kinds of muscle pain. It's nice. And so knights generally, when they're in cold environments, they often had garments that they wore over it to try and insulate it from the cold. There's even things that look like padded tea cozies that they wore in Northern Europe over their helmets to try and keep the heat from getting sucked out of them. So it rings true in every way.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I have a bigger question that I've been waiting to ask someone from the Wallace Collection for 30 years myself here. Because you're around the armor and all sorts of swords and medieval weaponry. Is this so heavy that if the knight were to pick up his sword, would he fall backwards?
Not really.
As he does in the movie.
No. I mean, his main problem is that he hasn't had a lot in the way of either cardiovascular or muscular exercise in quite a long time. So he's just stiff, and he moved a bit suddenly, and but he's probably only wearing about 25 kilos of armor, which is maybe about 50 pounds. When if you're you're trained to use it, you wear it all the time. It's a lot less than what most modern soldiers have to fight in now. So he's probably not. He's probably been sitting there for 800 years and just not had to move in an urgent way, and it's taken him a bit by surprise, I think.
He's either atrophied, or it might just be really damn cold.
Yeah,
and all that. He might just be like, oh.
Well, it's interesting. Like in some of the books about the Crusades I've read, it sounds kind of like armor was the super weapon that the Western side had going into this. But would he have had like a whole retinue of people supporting him also wearing armor, or would they not? Would he have been the only guy wearing armor, and then all like his servants and guys with him would not be wearing armor, or how would that work?
No, generally armor was a lot more widespread than we tend to imagine. I mean, the people who looked like knights were not all knights. I mean, knights are just a small portion of the armor wearing community. Now, obviously, the quality of what you're wearing depends on who you are or who you work for. So if he's a wealthy knight, he'll probably buy gear for his bodyguards and household troops that's better than what they could afford on their own. And it also depends what type of soldier you are. You're armed according to your method of deployment. So archers wear different gear because they've got a different job. But in the crusading period, a knight that looks like our fellow here would probably have a squad of 10 or 12 household knights or squires or bodyguards all working with him, who are armed pretty much in the same way as he is.
Okay.
Now I'm wondering. It's a Monday morning, and I'm heading off to the Crusades. I'm heading off to the Holy Land. How do you? But I'm in a traveling. I'm going in a troop.
Yeah.
How do I determine what I get dressed at? Like, what do I put on? My pants? I mean, when do you put on your armor? Are you like, as we approach the city? I know next Monday we're probably going to be engaged in battle, so then I'll pull out my suit of armor. Or are you like, well, I'm on the horse and it's going to be a long way. We probably won't be raided today by brigands, so I'm going to wear some light armor.
Yeah. It's basically all about expectation. What are you expecting to be doing for the day? And when it's not only being prepared or otherwise. I mean, you don't want to go to the trouble of wearing armor if you don't think anything violent is going to be happening. But also, right. I mean, when you put your armor on, you're making a statement, and you're making an overtly offensive statement. So you don't want to, for example, show up at the walls of a foreign city all armed with your helmets on, dressed for battle, if you are just there to, make a diplomatic gesture and ask for a bed for the night or whatever. You have to be concerned with the appearances and what kind of effect you're going to have.
I'm just imagining. Wait! I'll take the helmet off. Hang on a minute. Hang on. Yeah, I forgot.
I mean, it's nice that our knight hasn't put his helmet on, because if he's sitting there with his helmet on, he's overtly aggressive. So he's left his helmet off, which is quite considerate.
Would helmets in this era have been like the full face helmet with just a little slit for the eyes, or would it have been like an open
there
face?
There were a couple of different kinds, and we don't really know precisely what date our Grail Knight actually comes from. I think there's reference to the First Crusade obliquely at one point, but I mean, do we actually know when he was supposed to have gotten to the cave in the first place?
Oh, that's difficult. I mean, it's supposed to be 1095, I guess, around there, when they embarked on the First Crusade. But then it gets a little squirrely, if you can imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, in that case, he probably would have had like a close conical skull cap that has like a central nose guard, or nasal, it's called. It's like the typical helmet of the Norman conquest sort of period. They didn't really have full face helmets as early as the 11th century, but we associate that with the Crusades because it's typical of the more famous Third Crusade, really.
So it's kind of like the helmets the Lego knights have.
Right, exactly like that.
But I had one more question here when we talk about armor. So when we think about armor, and it eventually, how it changed over the centuries, and eventually, I guess, sort of gave way to stronger weaponry. I guess bullets or whatever it is. At what point will you be like, "Oh my God, look at the armor on that guy! He's so backwards." We got this. How did that? When did that happen, or how did that go about?
That's a big question. But basically, I mean, the first thing to say is that one of the reasons you can look at an armor like our Grail Knight and place him very specifically in a time period is because armor was evolving all the time. You can basically date a painting or a sculpture down to almost a decade if you know what the armor is telling you. And a lot of art historians don't actually know that. They don't know how powerful a dating tool the style of armor actually is. Knights weren't backward, can't change with the times, conservatives. They were always the people with the latest gear. Every year they were updating their stuff. Firearms were introduced, small handheld firearms were introduced in the 14th century. And it took another 250 or more years before it really there was no point in wearing armor anymore. So it wasn't an overnight thing, really. But by the sort of second half of the 17th century, there was in the English Civil War, there was a group of fully armed cavalrymen who still wore full plate armor, and everyone called them the Lobsters. Because they were starting to look a little old fashioned, but it took a long time.
I love it. Well, that's fantastic. Well, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at the Wallace Collection?
Yeah, I'm the curator of Arms and Armour, so I'm responsible for nearly half of the total contents of the building. Wow. It's a collection of arms and armor that dates from the early medieval period, the 8th century, actually. We have a Frankish sword that dates from about 800 AD, all the way through to the 19th century. The real strengths of the collection are 14th, 15th, and 16th century, so late Middle Ages and the Renaissance. And it's one of the world's greatest collections of arms and armor, although it's probably in the top 10 in the world, but of the top 10, it's also the smallest and most intimate, so you can really you can get to grips with it on a human level when many other big collections can be kind of overwhelming. And we have very good medieval sword collection. I mean, for a smaller collection, it's very unusual to have substantial medieval holdings of any sort, and we're quite strong on that. And that actually brings me to my other point, which is the more specific point about this knight's sword. Mm-hmm. As I spend a fair amount of time looking at medieval swords and considering them both as weapons, but also as symbols. You know, a sword is a powerful image, and it stands for all kinds of knightly powers and rights and privileges. And you know, this is why when we see one, it's meaningful. And the Grail Knight's sword really jumps off the screen at you. And it's a very specific sword that I wanted to identify. It's a copy. It's obviously not the real one. But this sword could actually be the focus of an entire Indiana Jones adventure by itself. And I'm kind of surprised.
Really?
Wow.
I'm kind of surprised that Indy doesn't notice or take any notice of that sword. He should be much more impressed about that sword than anything else. It's certainly worth more than the cup he's going to be leaving with. And this is actually the sword they're using in the movie here is a replica of the royal sword of France, the coronation sword of the medieval kings of France, that was introduced as early as the 13th century. It might actually be older than that, but we can't be sure. And it was used right up until the French Revolution, when it was transferred to the Musée du Louvre, along with the Mona Lisa and various other things. And it's still there. You can still go and see it. And it's reputed to be a sword called La Joyeuse, which is the personal sword of the Emperor Charlemagne, who I think got mentioned earlier in the film as well.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So this is supposed to be Charlemagne's sword, the real sword that he fought the Moors with and killed, personally executed a Moorish commander. And there's lots of sort of pseudo-historical, mythological stuff about this. So this is a sword that kind of exists partly in history and partly in myth. And whether it is Charlemagne's sword or not is a subject of a long debate. But the point is that there's a lot of mystique around it. This has become a mystical, object, in its own right, sort of like the Spear of Destiny in the Vienna Imperial Treasury or something. And so much so that when Hitler arrived in Paris in June 1940, he was presented with this sword. As a kind of a symbol that he had conquered the lands that had in ancient times formed part of the First Reich. So the Third Reich was reuniting the territories of Charlemagne, the Western Empire and the Holy Roman Empire. And I only know this. This is sort of, I can't prove this. You're going to have to take my word for this, because I know I have seen newsreel footage of the real Royal Sword of France being presented to Hitler, and Hitler actually handling this. There is film footage of this. I've looked for it for years again, can't remember where I saw it, but it's out there somewhere. So if you want to sick your listeners on that one, someone clever might be actually be able to find that. But it's more, this sword is more steeped in the Indiana Jones mythos than most people will realize, I think, including the people in the scene.
That's incredible.
That's got all the filigree and makings of an Indiana Jones movie right there. We got Nazis and Hitler and Charlemagne. And
exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Is it not the sword? That's great.
Indiana Jones and the Sword of Power or something.
Yeah. And I have one final question for you, Toby. The shield, the knight's shield, and his brother's shield that we see earlier. How accurate would something like that be? And would it be made out of leather, or what would that have been made out of?
Well, yeah, that's that brings up, first of all, the issue of their kind of Grail Knight cross thing. The various guardians of the temple and everything are wearing. It's like a red cross, but then it's got all this other stuff growing out of it. And I mean, that's a fantasy. There's no medieval cross that looks anything like that. The cross of Jerusalem does have a double transverse arm, but this other one, it's got also this sort of curved thing. It looks like, the decoration on a samurai helmet on the top there. That's made up. So they're going off on one a little bit there, but the shield otherwise, in terms of its basic shape, it's fine. It's a so-called heater shield, so it's flat across the top and then gently curving down to a point at the bottom. That's all fine. I mean, the fact that Indy finds that, with the skeleton of the knight still in it, and the skeleton's still in his armor, and then he dumps it in the water, was a cringeworthy moment. That was the worst moment for me in the film.
Yeah. Come on. Did you know about the Wallace Collection? I mean, see, that's what we get so upset about. I mean, it's not like he's world renowned. I'm sure he has the number of the Wallace Collection or whoever. Come on, just call him. You don't have to dump it.
Exactly. We'll come pick it up later. All right.
Exactly. Is that type of shield, would that have been a shield that you could actually use, or was it sort of more of a ceremonial shield? Because it's huge.
No, they're big. I mean, this is a period when
I mean, it's ornate and carved, and we're talking about it gives away the entire story of the Grail. You might not want your enemy to be reading that while you're fighting him, but.
Right. I mean, he would be distracted, and that would give you a moment. But they didn't generally write lots of stuff on their shields like that. They usually have a heraldic device or something. But they're treating that shield a bit like it's some kind of Rosetta Stone, and we've got one part, and they've got the other part, and nobody ever wrote their life story on a shield, really. But in terms, but the size is perfectly fine. I mean, this is a period when the only armor you're wearing on your body is padded, flexible material. You don't have any hard armor really, except on your head. So for that, the hard armor that you get in this period is your shield, and you want a big one because you need to be able to hide behind it.
Yeah.
And shields, as plate armor gets as the armor on the body gets better, shields get smaller and smaller because they don't need to be that big anymore. But for this period, it's absolutely right. They needed a big shield to get all that writing on there for the plot of the movie. But it's fine. I'll let them go on that one.
Well, where can people visit the Wallace Collection, either online or in person?
Yes. I mean, if you're in London, we're right in the middle of central London, just down from Baker Street. And we're open 7 days a week, and it's free to come, like most national museums in the UK. And we've also spent a lot of time in the last couple of years upgrading the website to try and make as much of the collection and the museum available online as we can. And we do Facebook films and little web films on YouTube whenever there's something that seems interesting and worth sharing with people. So we're out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool. Definitely checking that out next time I'm there.
Well, and I checked the online gallery. I mean, it's stunning.
Yeah, it is absolutely.
And I should mention just one other thing that occurred to me. We actually have a portrait of King Louis XIV in his coronation robes, and he's wearing that sword. He's wearing the Grail Knight's sword in that painting. Yeah. Wow. So if Indiana Jones fans want to come and have a look for it, they're more than welcome.
Cool.
He's looking at you, John Brugan.
Well, thank you very much, Toby. This was really a treat talking to you.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me on.
And Jerry, I guess let's head back and see if Tom's still knitting that male cap.
Oh yeah. Oh, if I know Tommy, he is. This darn little. Can't get the rabbit goes into the hole, turns around the thumb.
Darn little, literally.
I wonder if there's a point, like, if you so sincerely devote yourself to something like this, like even if it was his idea to, like, oh, me and my brother are going to guard the Grail, at some point does it become like an actual holy supernatural thing or something? Like, after a certain point, is he like, well, I swore to this for so long and I upheld it for so long, I actually can't do anything. It's got me now. Like, I can't just walk up and leave. I got to pass my sword to the next guy. I got to follow the rules.
Who's that? There's that one famous saint, Saint Simon of Stylites, and he like climbed up on the pole. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah, him.
You do know, you wise-ass Pete.
The pole guy.
The pole guy. Yeah, I feel like Pete. Come on now. I know you know Simon of Stylites. Don't try and slip out of this, you little slippery prick, you. And he stayed on the pole so long that's pretty much who he was and what he was famous for and known for. And people came from all around to, I don't know if they tried to trick him off the pole. Hey, come down. We got a birthday cake for you. But that was like what he was known for. That became who he was and how we know him now 1900 years later.
Wasn't there a whole group of guys that did that? Like there was a whole commune or whatever.
Yes.
Guys.
They're literally pole sitters.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have Netflix back then. The entertainment was a bit more limited. It's a guy in a
He'd
pole.
sit atop this pole. It had to do with this whole like desert aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
And it was way early, like first, second century.
Yeah.
But you're right, Tommy. And I'm wondering, is he just sitting there literally like, I'm going to do this until I'm blue in the face?
And now I am.
Now he is. Yeah.
Time to go.
That was for you, Pete. You love terrible puns.
Thank you. Here's a question: If he's like handed over the sword, at this point, could he off himself? Like if he's just like, I'm done. I'm ready to get out of here. I'm ready to die. Could he just drink out of one of the fake grails and like see his sucker and he's gone, or was he not immune to that? Like, does he have to leave the temple and live out the rest of his natural life to die at this point?
Weird.
That's fascinating. See, I think he probably ascends to heaven, but they won't take it that literally. If they had to show it, he wouldn't go up an escalator to heaven. Whatever the hell that Chantel was from the first script.
Yeah.
I think he'd probably disappear in a very like Yoda type way or something.
I was thinking more like he's like a long walk into the desert.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
sure.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
that'd
good.
be nice. Yeah.
They pass him at the end on the horses.
He just gets he's kind of already fading from this plane of existence. That's
Just
kind of
slowly phasing out.
He doesn't really live forever. Does he only live until he's cool with his successor who shows up and takes over the responsibilities?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for him, his successor is Indy. He's got his own agenda. He's like, vanquish me. He's like, sorry, pal.
That's great.
He's got to be so angry, though. Like, I would just be so furious if it's been 700 years. Like, finally. And then as soon as the guy's like, oh, no, I don't want this. No.
Well, that's got to be a serious possibility the whole time. Like Donovan shows up with a gun in a minute. Like, if he had just shot the knight, like if Indy hadn't shown up first, if Donovan had shown up and just shot the knight, would that be... Does that fit the rules? Like, does he doesn't need to be worthy or anything. He just needs to beat him in combat. Would that count? And then he just...
Oh, that's fascinating.
Although if I'm the knight, as soon as Donovan comes into the room, I'm throwing the sword at him. I'm just being, hey, take it, buddy, take it.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you fight a guy who just heals immediately? You can
Yeah,
see
that's true.
Oh,
Yeah. See, I don't
Yeah.
think.
There's nothing but a scratch.
See? Full Monty Python. Let's go with it.
See,
Names all his
maybe
favorite
he
cheeses.
knows.
It'll be
See,
great.
that makes me rethink that he's faking the whole swing, because
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, how would you kill the
Putting
guy?
on a show.
Yeah.
Who doesn't
He's got to
die?
appease his mystic, hasn't he? So look, I tried.
Right. God's watching.
Yeah.
I put the chainmail on. I took a swing. You know, what more do you
Yeah.
want?
The moves on this guy. There's nothing I could do.
What's funny is we see we see Indy actually push the sword back down, and he goes like, yeah, no, I know that's nice guy and everything, but listen,
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, it's a great little story, but what's
It's an old
interesting
man.
is I thought, yeah, applesauce is coming, and bingo's right after. You know, but what if Indy just accepted the challenge, and he says, okay, I'm the guy. Now, is the knight, if he said, hey, you're right, Pops, I'm here now, would then the knight say, you must now pick the right chalice? He seems to know that Indy is the anointed knight.
He would have tipped him off.
Yeah,
Getting
does he-
warmer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Getting
Yeah.
warmer. No, it's
Yes.
that one.
Because the knight doesn't want to see Indy die, does he?
No.
No.
He's been waiting
Yeah.
700 years for this.
Well, that's what's
Yeah.
weird. Okay, so in this moment, like he holds the sword up to Indy and he says, "You vanquished me." So I'm passing on. I forget exactly what he says, but you defeated. You vanquished me. Here's my sword. And Indy, yeah, he shoves it down. So, I mean, according to the knight anyway, does he believe that he's done and now Indy is the guy, or has Indy not accepted it or something?
That's why he lets Donovan have a chance at a grail, maybe.
That's super weird. We'll talk about that next time, but that's
Yeah.
really weird. Yeah.
And do you think, has anybody else made it this far before? Like, is this a regular occurrence
Oh.
that somebody gets this far, or is Indy the first one?
That's a good
I mean, somebody
question.
has to have made it this far. I guess they could have happened when they first got here, but he knows that if you drink from the wrong one, you're going to die. So it seems like somebody's been here before.
I feel like he would just know that anyway. That's part of the
Yeah.
job. Like he just, that would be in the job description.
Yeah, but if you make up the job, then
Yeah, but I'm not entirely convinced he made up the job. I mean, I get it, but
where do you get where is like where are the OSHA regulations and where is all this written down if he comes
Right.
in and accepts it?
Maybe the last guy turned up and he said, the knight's like, well, you don't need to drink from the grail just yet. Come and sit with me for a few months.
yeah.
What's going on in the world?
You don't worry about those cups.
Do they
he'll
still
do with
have
the Kaiser?
birds?
Which makes me think that actually the ideal thing that would have happened for the knight is if they had just sent in Marcus, and he and Marcus just could have sat there and kind of doddered
yeah.
together for a couple
Yeah.
hundred years.
Perfect.
Well, so wait. So hang on a minute. Because I'm assuming no one else has made it because the knight says, yes, 700 years is a damn long time.
That's a good point. Yeah, it seems like
He
Indy's
doesn't
the
say, oh,
first.
no, man, it's only been 8 months. And then prior to that, it was like, well, like 16 months.
He said the last of three brothers who swore an oath to find the Grail and to guard it. And Indy said that was 700 years ago, and the knight says a long time to wait. But he doesn't say nobody else has been here. He just
That's
says he's
true.
still guarding the Grail. I mean, it's possible someone's even come and drunk from the Grail, and then maybe he had a girlfriend for a couple hundred years, and then she got sick of him and left.
No.
Like nothing really precludes that. From
Well, what
he
happens
says.
if you drink from the grail and pass the seal?
It's all bets
Well-
are off.
No,
You're
we
fine?
know what happens when you do that.
Oh, I don't remember.
Well, Jerry doesn't, but people
That's
who've seen
debatable.
the rest of the movie know what happens.
All right. Well, I
Yeah.
know what I remember. You can't take the grail past a certain point, but I mean, are you
Getting
allowed
ahead
to
of
waltz into
ourselves,
the room?
guys.
Okay. All right.
Come on.
I've got a self-proclaimed excellent question
Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
nice.
I like
for
those.
Jerry.
Yeah.
What do you think these decorative plates are for?
I think those are for dumbasses who don't know what grails are.
Are they purporting to be grails, or are they just decorative?
I think they're there. It's a little bit of a distraction, maybe a little bit of a red herring to trip you up a little bit because
I'm
you're
gonna
like,
take issue with that.
I
Well,
know you are,
technically-
Pete. I think Pete has the answer already. I think he's already explained it like hours and hours ago.
in the original Grail story, yeah, which we discussed several minutes ago, and Jerry just
Why don't you
didn't
listen
pay
to the show,
attention.
Jerry?
In the original Grail story, the Grail was like a platter.
I
Yeah.
was getting there, Peter.
Okay.
No, you
Okay.
weren't.
I was
that
getting
right?
there.
Okay.
I was with the whole Celtic lore. It was a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit of
the
like an
ticket,
open
Pete.
big plate.
I thought the knight just had a thing for decorative plates.
They
Well,
do
see,
look
but
nice.
that's what's fascinating about this little spread here. This little spread is they give you both of the Grail legacies. It could be a
Yeah,
cut from
I like
Joseph
that, yeah.
Arimathea, or B, it could be the Celtic old school lore one where it's more of a plate/platter.
And that's a good question though. Does every Grail kill you, or are there several good Grails? Like maybe there is a Grail that would keep you young. Maybe Indy just didn't choose the right one, or maybe the knight has been drinking the wrong Grail.
Well, he can't have been drinking the wrong Grail. I mean, he's 800 years old.
Well, I'm saying there could be some good Grails and there could be some great Grails. Like, do we know that every single Grail there, except for one, is going to kill you in some different fashion?
Sometimes it's just like Pete's at the dog park, running around sniffing other dogs' butts, taking it wherever it goes. No, I mean, I don't know. You're right. Maybe some of them you live an extra 100 years.
Yeah.
But it's nothing magical, really.
It'd be pretty ballsy call to go for a plate,
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
this
That
scenario.
would.
yeah.
It would.
But respectable, yeah. I mean, and also,
feel like Pete
how
would.
would... Yeah, oh, yeah, maybe.
Well, if you go for the plate, you got like 1 foot in pagan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
kind of half pagan there. So I don't know how far you get across that last challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you cheated with a little bit. You rode someone else's courtesy sand.
Well, it'd be cool for the movie to do that. To be like, hey, all you dummies, there's like a whole other side of this history that you don't even are not paying
Yeah.
any attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the real
It
Grail.
is interesting. I don't know why the movie put the plates there.
Well, and originally the Grail was going to be less the Christian lore thing than it was going to be kind of a Celtic pagan thing, I think.
Oh,
Pete, as a person with a mild anxiety disorder, if you went for a plate, would you be worried about spilling the water? It's going to be hard to keep that water in there.
That would be tough. Yeah.
How are you going to get it in that font? You got to scoop it up. It's going to be awkward.
Oh, that's true.
Well, you know what? I feel like if we were talking before, if the water's holy water, that just seems redundant.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would feel like whatever, liquid or libation is in the Grail becomes holy. So if it's Mountain Dew, it's holy Code Red.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or sacred.
Holy kombucha.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
sacred ginger ale.
Well, I want to go back to something you said, Neil. Did your grandparents have like collectible plates?
Oh, yeah.
Like, is anybody who lives to be a certain age start collecting plates? Like, I wonder if the knight just like that became,
Yeah, you got to hang them on the walls as well.
yeah. And he kind of has them hanging on the walls here.
Yeah, he's proud of him. Say, come over and see this one, Indy. Picked it up in Marek. Bloody lovely, isn't it?
What if Indy had just said, you know what, my dad's probably dead by now, or I can't be bothered with this anymore. This is the greatest, this is the greatest thing I'll ever achieve. I accept the sword. I'm the dude. If he didn't push the sword down and go, hang on, old timer, and he just accepted the sword, what happens then? That's what I really want to know. Does the knight say, drink from that one? The knight ascends into heaven, and then Indy's just sitting there in front of the Bible? And if Donovan comes in, he's like, nope, dude, you're too late. I'm the guy with the power now. And they're like, well, your dad's dying out there. And you're like, well, bring him in. Or screw it, don't. Or I'll go out. Yeah.
Well, we could learn later that he could still go out and hang out with his dad. Even if he did take on the role of the knight.
That's
I mean,
true.
he could be the guy sitting here for 700 years.
Yeah.
He won't have to teach school anymore. He'd be fine. It's his dream come true.
There's no window if he gets bored or something to crawl out of.
Yeah.
He'd last 5 minutes.
Yeah. If that.
He'd,
Yeah, he'd be
he'd
sitting
probably
there.
break all the grails.
Boring. Yeah. God, this sucks.
Elsa is no longer wearing a hat.
Oh.
Oh, it's true.
What's up with that?
Well, she had to crawl through that thing, though, didn't she? Maybe she had to. If I was going to crawl
blew
through that
off
thing,
on the
I
bridge.
would take my hat off.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and she probably
alright.
got cobwebs all over it, and unlike Indy, she just wanted them all off of her.
Mm-hmm.
I like that this chamber has a little kind of vestibule. Mm-hmm. It's got a little entranceway, and I always feel more comfortable in going into an apartment or a house or whatever with a vestibule. It's a little hallway. It's just a little
Yeah.
transition period between the outside and the place.
Oh, maybe
Yeah.
that's why it's a crawl space thing. It's like the Frank Lloyd Wright thing of like, you're compressed and then you come out into this bigger thing.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
it makes the cave seem all the more grand.
Oh, wow. I like
That's
that.
beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from Oak Park.
Well,
Oh my
That's
God! I
hilarious.
just saw something here too.
What?
It's second 56.
Wait, is this okay, go ahead. No, something else.
The knight's shield is sitting here, propped up against the altar.
Oh, get out of town.
Really?
Yeah, it looks just like the one that the guy had on that Indy poured. Indy set on fire, and
Wouldn't they all have one?
it's just
Yeah.
So it
it's
makes
sitting
sense,
here. It's
right?
got the same quadrants.
Wait, I don't see it, but I believe you.
Second
I wanna
56, when Donovan and Elsa are walking, and Indy's kind of right in the foreground.
Oh, I
the-
see
Oh,
it.
that
Left
is
there.
it. Yeah, you're right. You can
Yeah.
barely see it, but that's the shape of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know what's really weird? If you look behind the nice little Grail display, there's a carving of what its second 54, I believe, is the Last Supper.
It looks kind of like the carving. I can't tell if it's the Last Supper or if it's the same carving that was on that tomb that we couldn't figure out.
Oh, maybe you're right.
I didn't count the people on this one.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's more than 12 people. It looks like.
Oh, it does look like the one on the
Yeah.
brothers' tomb thing. Huh.
So there's also a lot of candles, and I just wonder where he gets his wax. As far as I can make out, there's only one source of wax. There's only one
God.
person in a room
That's
for 700
disgusting.
years.
Well, he's old enough for it.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a lot
God.
of wax in 700 years.
He just barfed in his mouth a little bit. I love it. Well, what is the knight thinking when Donovan enters? He's like, oh, are you kidding me?
Like, what? Is this his uncle? Is
Ah.
his whole family's coming here? What is this?
Yeah. Like, what is, I mean, does he have any clue what the gun is?
Right. He didn't
Yeah,
know
I
what
Just
was
it
any
was.
clue at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't know what a girl is. He's freaked out
Yeah.
by her. Strange alien
He's freaked
creature.
out by, yeah.
Flaxen
And
hair.
him,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, she's got teeth and everything.
And is he just like, this isn't how this is supposed to go?
Right.
Like, is he, I think it might show how quickly he gave up. He's like, oh, you're the guy.
Yeah. Or now he's
You
like,
know?
oh, why didn't he accept the sword? Now I got to fight these two also. Oh.
It is
Yeah.
interesting. He doesn't make any move to fight these two.
No.
Like, does Indy.
Nah, he's on board now. As soon as the knight gets it, totally. He's
Yeah.
clued in. Whether
He
it's
kind of seems to be.
Yeah.
I think he's like,
Mystic
this is
intervention
above,
or-
above
Yeah.
my pay grade.
No, I think he's in with it. I think he's just going along with these. Right? Okay, some bad guys.
Yeah, I
Let's
think so too.
Let's do the Grail test thing. Let's get rid of
Yeah.
at least one of them.
This will be exciting.
So would no one do that? So if Donovan doesn't come in, then there's no Grail test.
Yeah, I think he just tells Indy, it's that one.
Yeah, drink out of this one.
Probably goes and hands it to him.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But then why does he not do that after Donovan dies?
Maybe
That's a good point.
he's just sick of Indy at that point. It's like, God, this guy's never going to leave.
Turns out this isn't the guy. huh?
One way or the other, he'll be out of here.
Turns out I am an introvert.
I had no idea.
Well, see, he was a little premature in his anointing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. He's like, you're the man. That's it. It's you. And then if he's gonna make Indy choose, it's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Right.
Or is this just like seller's remorse? It's like, wait a minute, did I want to do that? Did I want to? Did I get
That
the deal I
sucks.
wanted?
I have to send to heaven now.
Yeah. Might be boring.
Oh, my aching back.
Can't the Grail fix his aching back? I mean, isn't that what the Grail does? It fix backs?
Yes.
Well, it does fix backs, but it doesn't necessarily make you not be tired.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you go to sleep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rules that we don't have defined in this movie. Like
Yeah.
the rule of how the Grail
Which
works, how the night works.
Love. I think when you sit down and explain every midichlorian rule, it sometimes takes away from the enjoyment of the movie.
I agree. It's
Gerald.
fine.
No, I it's a very different thing watching these movies a minute at a time.
Yeah,
and I
but-
would not recommend it.
Yeah.
I have another question for you guys.
Yeah.
Have you guys mentioned that Julian Glover was originally supposed to play Vogel?
No, I don't think we have,
Oh, weird.
actually.
No, wow.
And it was producer Robert Watts that then suggested him for Donovan. But yeah, I believe that Julian Glover was originally cast as Vogel, which would have been a bit weird for me.
Yeah, that would have been really weird. I think Vogel is a weird Vogel, but I think...
In a good way, in a good weird Nazi way.
Yeah, I think he's good,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's not who I would have cast, which I think he's better than I would have cast. But yeah, Donovan also would have been very strange, and but perhaps also good.
Possibly good, yeah. Possibly quite good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Might have been
maybe.
General Veers-ish about it.
Yeah,
Kind of less menacing, quietly menacing or something.
Yeah,
Coolly menacing.
less creepy.
I do like the kind of avuncular creepiness of Donovan though, and I love Jerry's imitation of it.
Just what the doctor ordered. That,
Yeah.
Well, Jerry, is there anything coming in over the thing that has things coming in over it?
yes.
I thought there might be.
Yes, this is I feel like saying this is what kind of telegraph machine is this? This just in from I can't. It's too late. Professor Christy Porter. Did anyone else notice that Indy is using his Belloc face? Wow.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
He
he's got
is.
that scowl.
Yeah, when Donovan comes in, Belloc.
Yeah.
Oh,
What about your boss, DeFuby?
He does. Second 54, 55.
that's funny.
Belloc. Yeah, he does. That's his Belloc face. Wow.
I knew I shouldn't have left that sand on the bridge.
and the knight could have been wearing his watch for the last 1,000 years, and then it would have been worth something.
Oh, he'll be rich.
Yeah.
He'll be loaded.
Now you tell him. Well, Neil, thank you for joining us. I'm still amazed you somehow spanned the wormhole between weeks, but this has been great.
I had a great time. I had a great weekend.
Yeah.
You put me up in Jerry's place, though. I mean, it would have been better if it been maybe Pizza Tom's, but it's fine.
To sleep with your head inside a bass drum or something?
Yeah. Did Tom make you the promised pancakes?
No, I never got the pancakes.
Yeah, I never got those.
Yeah,
at all.
My son
that's
ate
a
them all. I'm
that's-
sorry.
That's how Tom
They're
did it.
gluten-free anyway. You wouldn't have liked
He's a
them.
growing boy. He just says.
That's right. He did give you some Whoppers, though. Oh, well, tell people again where they can find you. You got the Mogwai Minute going on.
Yeah, you can find my podcast wherever you find podcasts. Just search for the Mogwai Minute. And if you like the movie Gremlins, that's sometimes what we talk about.
And they tend to be perhaps even more contentious than we are.
Sometimes. I mean, we've
that's
got
scary.
George is American, I'm British, so there's a lot of debate and examination of cross-cultural differences and personal preferences of things on pizzas and things like that.
Oh, sure.
Where do you guys sit on the pineapple and pizza thing?
I always feel like it tastes a little bit actually like vomit because it's a kind of tangy sweetness,
You're-
like mixed
you're
with the
correct.
spaghettis, like with the sauce. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. I like pineapple and I like pizza, but yeah.
I've
Not
still
together.
never had it. I may have it
Really?
for the first time in my life in Denver this summer when we're at the Movies by Minutes
Oh.
convention. I might
George is going to
have
force
it
it on
with
you.
George. Yeah, and I can vomit in person.
Yeah. I'll try it too. I'll give it another shot.
You know, I can appreciate it. I've had it. I can appreciate why people would like it, but it's not what I choose when I get pizza.
There you go.
This.
Yeah.
Eat that, George. It's 4 against 1.
The numbers are growing. Well, everybody, no matter what you want on your pizza, enjoy it, and then come back here tomorrow for minute 112 of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Simon Stylites, he was a 4th century pulse hitter.
It's true, Jerry.
Pete, you knew who I was
Family
talking
show.
about, didn't you?
You know what song I did, but you know what song is I still can't get out of my head is licking off the afterbirth, licking off the afterbirth, licking off the afterbirth, licking off the afterbirth.
It's called a hook, Peter.
That's why it's a hit.
Yeah. God, that's been in my head every day for like 4 months now, and I'm ready for it to be gone.
I want a 3-count one next time, though, Jerry.
Yeah, come on.